Joe Rourke of the Bryant Law Center, Paducah and Louisville, our guest today on this edition of Local 6 Legal Line. Questions regarding legal items, fair game. Criminal defense, divorce, anything else you might have, give us a shout. 1-888-208-6946. We have a question from Patrice, who says, if I bought pot legally in Metropolis, what happens if I get pulled over and get caught with it while I'm in Kentucky?
Okay, well, in Kentucky, it is still not legal to possess marijuana, and so you would be subject to a criminal charge in that context, and that's a real tricky scenario for medical marijuana or just legally available marijuana in, say, Colorado or Washington, or the two states everybody thinks of. So just because it was legally purchased one place does not make it legal to possess it here in another place. And in Kentucky, it is not legal to possess marijuana, and so don't bring it into the state unless you want to face some potential criminal sanctions. But a better proposition is just don't bring it to the state. If you need it for medical purposes and you're obtaining it in Illinois, then just keep it in Illinois.
Richard says, my son is up for parole next year. Is there anything he can do at this point to increase his chances of getting it?
If you are up for parole, the best thing you can do is probably already done at this point. There are classes, there are activities that you can take part in, while you're incarcerated to sort of improve your life and kind of prospects and potential for when you are out, and to help you address any issues that may have been the source of the reason you ended up incarcerated in the first place. And so if there are any of those programs available to him, anything like that, any counseling sessions, any group sessions, anything that he can do while he's still incarcerated, that's about the best thing you can do to increase his chances of parole. Otherwise, just get a bunch of letters from relatives and family members, if there's any way to line up employment if he were to be released, and have a reasonable plan for where he's going to live. All those things factor into whether or not someone's going to be paroled.
Have an anonymous viewer who says, my uncle was in prison for 10 years for something he did not do. Through appeals, he was eventually found not guilty and released. So now what are his legal rights?
Okay. So if a conviction was vacated on appeal and there's not going to be a new trial or anything, then he was never convicted of that crime, so he probably doesn't have to report that conviction on any sort of job applications or other documentation. Sometimes you see a scenario where someone's been wrongly imprisoned or incarcerated, and by virtue of the fact that they were wrongly incarcerated, they're entitled to some monetary compensation, but it typically requires some knowledge or intentional action on part of the state that led to their incarceration. I don't know what the facts of what the facts of this particular case is, but it's okay to talk to an attorney about that. But for the most part, be happy that he's out and explore those options now that he's been set free, and I'm glad he has. If he didn't do it.
Got about 30 seconds left in our first segment, and we have a question from someone who wants to know, can I sue someone for falsely accusing me of sexual abuse?
Yes, if it is deemed to be false and determined to be false, you can take civil action against them. It would be in the realm of either intentional infliction of emotional distress or defamation or slander. It depends on the nature of the false accusation, but it needs to be knowingly false. I mean, they have to know that it's false at the time they make it, and you have to be able to prove that they knew it was false at the time the accusation was made. So there's a lot to that. So talk it over with a lawyer before you go too far with that one.
Well, our topic has been criminal defense on this first segment of Local 6 Legal Line. And guess what we'll talk about next? It's divorce. And that's coming up next on the next segment of Local 6 Legal Line. That's right after the break on WPSD Local 6 Midday.